I don't want to sleep in plastic. I think we should be moving away from that. Like we have other more sustainable, environmentally friendly options that are healthy for us. So I eliminated all of that category.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Katya Eckert, the CEO and founder over at A DOMANI. Katya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
And we're so excited to have you. Can we start out with an overview of A DOMANI? What is it that you guys do over there?
Sure. So A DOMANI is a line of cooling, sleep, and loungewear for women. It is something that I created after a lot of different personal type of things. So it became kind of a calling. My mother went through breast cancer and I watched her really struggle through the radiation and chemotherapy and all of the skin sensitivities and kind of just watching her suffer through that and not seeing solutions on the market. Then a year later, I went through a postpartum letdown. I had my daughter and was experiencing very heavy night sweats and all of these kind of symptoms that nobody really talks about. And it was kind of like a comedic here because I would sit in the middle of the night nursing my daughter and order pajama after pajama after pajama because I would wake up multiple times a night to nurse, but also change my pajamas. And my husband just turned to me one day and he's like, you have a business here. Like there's not anything on the market. I think you've literally sampled the entire market. And so my job at that time was doing business development for in institutional finance. I was cold calling hedge funds and pitching trades and bringing them on as clients into the very niche world of equity derivatives, and had no experience in retail, fabric, brand development, DTC, like nothing. And I just this was a passion project and we can get into it. And I probably kind of went a little bit further into the story than necessary at this point, but it was a journey. It was a journey to get here. And I'm just so lucky to be doing the business. And I'm so lucky to have such a great response from customers. And there was a gap in the market because the response has been fantastic.
And along those lines, I think one of the things that was so fun hearing a little about your story when we were chatting last week is hearing just this radical shift in your career that you took from being very focused on the biz dev and finance space to product development. And
yeah,
what I'm so excited in particular to dive into today is how do you even start to learn about all these different things that go into creating a line of clothing and then eventually turning that into a business? So I'd love to start out there. And I think maybe a good starting point is let's go from idea phase to bringing the product to a customer's door. Can you give us a high level behind the scenes of what are some of the big steps that came into play there? And then we'll dive into some of those individually.
Okay. I will really try to keep it high level. I go on tangents. So I'll try to bring it back in. So I started calling basically every single person I knew and telling them I had this idea for this business and just seeing their reaction. Because, sometimes you have an idea and you say it to somebody out loud and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. It doesn't you could tell that it doesn't make sense.
They give you the little oh, wow, that sounds so interesting. No follow-up questions. And that might be a
no. Yeah. But I immediately saw just the response in friends, male, female, being yeah, my wife went through this. Oh my God, my mom is going through this. Oh my God, this is please make this. Please make this. And as I was making it, people would reach out to me that I had just told them that I'm even thinking about starting a business. Have you, when are you launching? I need to buy it. You know what I mean? It was it wasn't just that's nice. That's so nice. Good luck to you. But it was people were looking for the solution, just my network. And so once that seemed to me that it excited other people, not just me, I started to think about who I knew that could tell me basically anything. I reached out to my mother-in-law's seamstress and realized that I knew nothing because she was asking me like, what do you want these things to look like? What kind of sleeves do you want? What kind of neckline do you want? And like, I didn't know any of the terminology. I didn't know anything about fabric. I didn't know what a knit was versus a woven. I think we talked about this last week. Like, and probably I would venture to say that a lot of people in your audience don't know a woven, just to define, is like a men's work shirt, like button down. And this would be a knit, like a t-shirt. Ours is knitwear. More comfortable. But like after like gathering information from as many sources as I could, and more people than you think you do. Like, for example, like my dad worked in wearables at Adidas, and I had no idea that I would ever like reach out to my dad about basically anything like that. And he put me in touch with a woman that invented Lycra at DuPont. I went on Upwork and started putting up job listings for designers and interviewing designers. And every single conversation that I had, like looking for somebody that I clicked with, but also like it was a learning experience, right? And every single one of those conversations was something that I had to take in. The next piece was sourcing the fabric. Same thing. It was during COVID. One of my designers that I spoke to, get on every single virtual fabric fair because you can't go in person. And that was amazing because vendors were reaching out to me. I was reaching out to them. I was learning all about what the fabric composition is, what the properties are, realized that I really wanted it to be a natural fiber because the problems that I was looking to solve were hormonal fluctuations, really, like end of the day. And you don't want any kind of endocrine disruptors when you're talking about anything to do with hormones, whether it's menopause or cancer treatment or postpartum, anything. And then I had to learn about the fabric composition. Like if elastane is in the product, is it going to affect how durable the fiber is? How much it pills? Can you wash it? Can you dry it? Does the color fade? Do you need any finishes, etc.? And then I had to source a factory. And that was another round of calling every single person I knew and digging into these new people that I met with. And I went through like 5 different factories that I was considering: Turkey, Russia, Taiwan, China. I wound up with a factory in Mexico that I love. It's going to be so interesting to see what happens with the tariffs. But yeah, like getting the factory piece, then learning okay, we have the fabric. We had to learn about shipping the fabric to Mexico, what the tariff piece is, what the global supply chain picture looks like, and really calculating, like, does it make sense to source it from Europe? Do I have to make sense to source it from China? Is it, if I get the fabric in Asia, it's going to cost me more, but the tariffs cost me less, but the tariffs are more? And doing this like crazy math problem. And so this fabric that we're using right now, it's from Portugal. It goes to Mexico. That's where they make the product. I had to go to Mexico many times to like make sure that the factory was something that I was really happy with in terms of labor practices and quality, et cetera. Really wanted to be hands-on with that. And then since I'm a one-man band, I do the shipping right now from my house. So it's all in my basement and like temperature controlled environment and like humidity control. And I kind of work all of it. Yeah. So I don't know if I kind of got into the pieces that where you wanted to cover, but that was kind of like the backstory of just creating the product.
Oh, that was phenomenal. Let's maybe start out with, let's just broadly call it like the learning component. Because one of the things you shared, you were able to look into your network and figure out all these different people that you could reach out to, collect little tidbits of information from a lot of them, interview Upwork designers. In hindsight, would you recommend for other businesses that are going through this same learning process, would you recommend doing the same and just trying to read as much as you can, interview as many people as you can? Would you recommend trying to like hire consultants that can teach you about different parts of the process? Maybe if you could go back in time, is there anything you would change within that?
Yes on all. Yes on all. I mean, I think especially if you're thinking about a business, like say you have an idea for a business and you've not done this business before, like say you're coming from a completely different background, you need to learn as much as you can. You just need to learn as much as you can. The hardest part is that you don't know what you don't know. So you don't actually know what you need to ask questions about. But for example, I have a good girlfriend who is a very senior at Google. So it's like, teach me about ads and search and whatever. And it's like, she's giving me a very high level, and you're not going to grasp all of it because you don't know the consequential pieces of it. But I think you just have to digest all the learnings that you can of the market, of the competitors, how you're going to go to market. Can you afford to even like create the product and keep it going? Like the first like business school study is always like the inventory management, because it could just make people go broke. So yeah, the one I would say, like, you don't know what you don't know. But I think the things that I maybe regret is like, you do know what you do know. And I think I paid some consultants more money than I needed to, like almost like for moral support. Like I didn't need to pay the consultant that was teaching me knowledge, like for life coaching advice, basically. But here we are. So.
Absolutely. You live and you learn. So within that, any advice on how you can go about figuring out some of those unknown unknowns when you are, let's say, like specifically going into like the fashion textile space? Anything that you did that helped in particular with that part of the process?
The people that you meet that feel like they want to help you succeed, latch onto those people. If you do not have a viable business idea, it will be very hard for you to meet those people, because salespeople, like especially at textile companies, say you're going to go and source the textiles or find a factory that does the full package of textile and production, and they will help you. It's such a relationship business that you really have to nurture that relationship with those providers, and they are really the ones that are going to work you through it. They're going to help you with getting the volumes that you can afford. They're going to help guide you with like what the finishings are on your garment, etc. They will want to work with you if you give them a good proposal on your volumes. So be prepared to spend money on a garment business. And if you have a viable business, that factory wants your business for a long time. They want to grow with you. They want to help you. And those people are really, they're going to be your people, because then you will succeed together. One of the most interesting things about the textile business to me, living in America, which is like a very litigious contract-based society, is that in textiles, you sign contracts, but they basically mean nothing because you have no recourse. Is it an entire industry done on a handshake? Because it's global and it's about building trust. And you have to trust your supplier has to trust you, and you have to invest a lot of your energy in that. But it can be so fruitful, and that will be really the source of your education. That will really be the source of a high quality product.
And this one tidbit I wanted to add, just to build on that I would say is industry agnostic, because I have zero experience in the textile space, is on top of that, as you are meeting other individuals, what I found to be personally helpful is there are not many individuals that I've met in my lifetime that are willing to give really blunt feedback about your business. Most people, I mean, as we were saying before, they're going to give you like a friendly, like, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. No follow-up questions. And then they're going to walk away and probably think like, oh, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. On those rare occasions that you meet those people, whether they be like people in the industry, people outside your industry that respond to you and say, well, I don't think you really thought through this, or they say like, well, I think that idea is going to flop because I don't think you really considered this particular angle. Those people are going to annoy you like crazy, but they are going to be some of the most valuable people. Keep them close. I would say every entrepreneur needs at least one of those people in their lives. All right. So we can all agree Field of Dreams was a great movie, but man, were those guys wrong. Just because you built it does not mean that they will come. Hey, this is Pat, the host of Customer Growth Sessions. Our agency, Intergrowth, has been helping e-commerce brands like Bella Bridesmaids, Brevity, and JS Dental to get more customers online since 2016. Interested in seeing how we'd help you? Head over to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary consultation with me. That's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show.
I completely agree, even if it's just for that person to be the motivator to succeed. Like, succeed despite the hate.
All right, so let's
keep going in spite of you.
So next thing I wanted to dive into is determining the right type of fabric. I mean, it's still in that same realm of like learning about the space. If I remember correctly, when we were talking, just kind of going into this call, I think you had said that you tested out 600 different fabric samples before you settled on what you were going to work with. So how did you approach that? Like, what are some of the are there groupings of fabrics? Then, you said, hey, let's start out with this segment. We're going to explore these different specific products in here. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah. So for sleepwear, you're really faced with like the option of woven or knitwear. You're not going to create sweaters, right? Like maybe you will down the line if like the product, the line calls for it, but you're really like starting there. So I eliminated wovens completely after I learned what they were. Then I started to learn about the actual fibers. So I don't know how deep you really want me to go into it, but like I think for the purpose of the effectiveness of the product, I'll dive into it a little bit at a high level. So initially, when I said like my husband was like, you have a business here, he's like, he would talk to his friends and he'd be like, yeah, Katya is working on creating a business. It's like sleepwear, pajamas, but it's like Under Armour, but sleepwear, right? And so when you think about that, you think about like quick dry fabrics, things you wear to the gym. And I was like, okay, well, that's an interesting place to start. And as I was sourcing those fabrics, I realized like they're plastic, right? Like they're literally made, they're polyester. So like your nylons, polyesters, elastans, like all of this, like polyamides, all of this is like, it's literally plastic. And you don't want to be sleeping in plastic. I don't want to sleep in plastic. I think we should be moving away from that. Like we have other more sustainable, environmentally friendly options that are healthy for us. So I eliminated all of that category. Then I started to look at natural fibers. And the one that probably everybody really knows at this point is bamboo. Oh, so you're using bamboo. Oh, you want to use bamboo? Actually, no. Bamboo uses a lot of chemicals to process the bamboo. And then the other thing that drives me crazy personally as a consumer is things that aren't durable. When you wash it and it pills and you paid so much money for this thing and 3 washes, it looks like, you could have gone to like a big box, like cheap retailer and gotten the same thing. It's like offensive. It's just offensive to me as a consumer to continue to rebuy these items, whatever it is, sleepwear or anything else. So I really wanted to focus on the pilling factor. So bamboo was out because it is nearly impossible. It is a short, stable fiber. So cotton is a long, stable fiber. Cotton is very like durable. So when you wear cotton, it doesn't pill, but cotton absorbs moisture and it has a really hard time moving moisture out. So that's why if you sleep in anything cotton and you sweat, you will wake up wet. So when people say like Pima cotton is like, that's like a big category of cooling sleepwear, Pima cotton. No, actually, no. Pima cotton, yes, more breathable and more cooling to the touch, like hand feel than like your run of the mill, not to be, no pun intended, cotton, but it's still not moving the moisture out of the fabric. So cotton was out and anything that had more than 30% cotton was out. Then I started to learn about fabric blending, right? So like cotton, what could stabilize a fabric, make it more durable, but I wasn't finding anything that like had the hand feel and the performance. So bamboos were out, cottons were out. Then the next generation of these cellulosic fibers, which bamboo is modals. Modals are very soft. If anybody has kids, they probably buy modal baby clothes or they probably bought modal sleepwear. Very short, stable fiber, uses less chemicals, next generation, but like, again, very hard to stabilize. The next generation, even more sustainable, less chemicals to process, less chemicals to dye, is a lyocell fiber. So Tencel is the brand name of lyocell. Then there are cellulosic lyocell fibers that are not Tencel branded. So there's the yarn, there's the fabric. So Tencel is made from wood pulp. Wood is turned into pulp. The pulp is turned into yarn. The yarn is turned into fabric. So you're technically wearing wood through this processing. And in the fiber has the properties of whatever it's made of. I wound up using a tencel, but it's a micro tencel. So it has an even better stability. It's an interlock construction. So it like has a really great return. So women's bodies change a lot through pregnancy or even through cycle swings, like you can get bloated, etc. And you want your clothes to kind of move with you and feel good. I ended up in this decision-making process where I really wanted tencel at least. I wanted a natural fiber. I wanted something that was going to have skin beneficial properties. So what we're using, this micro tencel, is really soothing to the skin, like amazing on eczema prone skin. And it moves the moisture away from the body, moves the moisture away from the fabric. It's naturally antimicrobial because trees are naturally antimicrobial. They're fighting off these kind of parasites or whatever. All of that goes straight into the fiber. And without any chemical finishing, without any additional things that like you would have to put on the fabric that would eventually wash out, the properties are in the fabric forever, which creates an amazingly durable product. And people can wear it for like a week straight, even though they're having night sweats. It doesn't smell. So less laundry, less water, less money spent on the thing that you need. So yeah, like it's a higher price point, but it like the durability and the longevity of the product was so important to me. You can buy one nice thing instead of like 3 things that are going to fall apart that you can continue to replace. There's just so much more technology now in fabric that just like really exciting to continue to implement that into the line, just like the performance aspect of it, not like we designed it to be beautiful, but the performance aspect is the thing that really carries the day.
A, it's amazing to me seeing ultimately just how knowledgeable you become about this space, and B, the fact that you haven't launched like a little side consulting business to talk about everything you just shared for the past 10 minutes, because there are probably so many listeners that are saying, how do we pay Katya to just tell us all these things and figure this out for us? That was amazing.
Thank you.
So once a business is figured out, really what fabric they're going to work with, how would you recommend that they start going about thinking about where to source that fabric? Let's start out with sourcing the fabric. You mentioned you found a sourcing business in Portugal, but it sounds like you were looking at a few different countries, probably quite a few different firms in these various countries. What led to you choosing Portugal?
Portugal wound up being the mill that I wound up working with a fabric engineer, and that fabric engineer specialized in natural fiber technology. So not only tencel, but they create crazy things like clothes out of banana peels and orange peels and like recycled sea waste. And they like really like specialize in that. And their mill that produced this wood pulp fabric, this lyocell fabric it wound up being in Portugal. And I really liked the like quality control that they provided, and just like the kind of like the white glove hand holding of like making sure that there was a lot of transparency and I could really rely on the fabric to perform. I think once you really know what you're doing, what kind of fabric you want, you can go to places like Asia, Peru, or Turkey and source those quantities, source those styles. The volumes are going to be much bigger. Unless you're prepared to buy 5,000 yards of fabric, 10,000 yards of fabric, you might want to stick to European manufacturers. The fabric is always really good quality. It's significantly more expensive, like can be 10 times more. But I think as a startup, you're probably not going to go to China and source fabric because very few businesses are prepared to traffic in those volumes. We actually wound up buying a ton of fabric, but like I had the investment there, and I really wanted to bring the price down, like the cost per unit down from the beginning. And I was confident that I could move the product. But like the higher your volumes, the better your prices, very high volume business for margin's sake. But I would say like if you're going to traffic in low qualities and trying to do like a proof of concept, a European manufacturer is kind of just going to be easier for you to work with.
Now, and along those lines, whether it's looking at the textile manufacturer or whether it's looking at in your case, you mentioned you're working with a company in Mexico that's helping to actually produce the clothing. Are there certain red flags that you started to learn about working with these different types of firms, things to keep an eye out for that led you to ultimately say, because to your own point, it sounds like it's an industry that's very reliant on trust. Legal agreements don't really carry as much weight. So I would imagine you have to go with your gut a lot more to say, is this a firm that I trust? So what are some of those red flags that you learn to keep an eye out for?
Anytime you see a bait and switch, really, you get one, if you're told three different things by, even the same person or three different people, no, you have to move on. Very much over promising. All of these companies are going to over promise because the lead times on these things take forever. It just does. My husband always laughs. He's like, I just can't believe we have clothes. I can't believe anybody walks around in clothes at all, given how this business functions. So yeah, with a sustainable fabric, the lead times are going to be really, really long. 6 months from getting the fabric to having manufactured it in your warehouse, at least 6 months. So you have to really there's a kind of a puzzle where you have to plan ahead, demand, getting more demand, restock. But yeah, I would say the bait and switch thing is very, very, very much a red flag. When you feel like you're talking to somebody and they're omitting something, that would be a red flag. The factory should want to stand behind their quality. So if there's a certain test that you want done on the fabric, the factory should be at least willing to split it with you and have a test done on the fabric to make sure that it's performing the way that it is. The textile mill should definitely be giving you sheets that tell you all the testing that they've done on the fabric. If they're not giving those to you, don't work with them. Yeah, I think it's really just feeling really good that you are being honest with the factory, textile manufacturer, or garment manufacturer, and that they're being honest with you. It's super important. It's really a business of integrity.
So for a lot of listeners who are about to go through this process or maybe have gone through this process but have gotten screwed in the past, are there any tests in particular that you'd recommend that they try out with the fabric?
I didn't realize how important burst strength was. And that is the fragility of the fabric. You want to make sure the fabric can really return and doesn't fall apart. It's not a common test, but I think it's an important one. And then color fastness for me is really important. Pilling value is very important. And you'll learn these things that are kind of on a scale, but a lot of brands, well-established brands, will develop standards. Burst strength has to be over 300. Pilling has to be 4.5. You will establish your set of standards and you will go to it makes the fabric sourcing process so much easier. You will not have to source 650 different qualities because any textile mill that you'll go to, you'll say, these are my standards. Only show me things that you've got that meet this.
That's brilliant. I want to wrap up here in just a minute, but before we do, I'd love to hear from you. We're early in 2025 at this point. What are you most excited for A DOMANI to release, let's say in the next 12 months, whether it's a new product line, whether it's just a big internal business update that's going on? Can you give us a sneak peek of what's ahead?
Yeah. Actually, we're working on a new fabric quality. So that's very much in the works, top of mind. So this is a very timely discussion. Really excited about that. We've had a tremendous feedback on the product, but people are wanting a lighter quality, a featherweight quality. So we're working on that. Really excited. We're also working on integrating a couple new styles, shorter shorts, straight leg pants, some new necklines. And I'm really excited because we're going to go into a new category of undergarments. So we're working on developing a couple new styles of underwear, a bralette for people to sleep in. That's been something that's been interestingly really requested, is a sleeping bra. So yeah, that's in the works for 2025 in terms of product line.
Well, Katya, for people who, let's say, either want to follow you or just want to buy your products, A, where should they go to connect with you? And B, where can they find A DOMANI online?
So at A DOMANI Sleep on Instagram and Facebook, I think on TikTok as well, although we have not built that out. It's coming. We're on YouTube at A DOMANI Sleep. Feel free to email me directly, Katya at adomanisleep.com. And go and try out the clothes, try out the sleepwear. It's at ADOMANIsleep.com is the website. We're really looking forward to everybody trying it out. And the feedback has been like kind of life-changing for people. So that's really cool. And if you are a creator and you're listening to this, please reach out to me because we are working on building our affiliate network and I'd love to talk to you.
And listeners, check out the show notes. We'll share links to all those different links that Katya shared as well. Once again, everyone, this is Katya Eckert, the CEO and founder over at A DOMANI. Katya, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Pat. It was such a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.